The humiliation didn't happen in private. It happened in public. Under bright white lights, in the middle of a crowded bank, my name echoed louder than it should have. People were standing close enough to hear my breathing slow down, to see my hands tremble as I held my debit card. The air smelled like burnt coffee and warm paper from the printers behind the counter. Somewhere, a machine beeped, once, twice, then stopped. The teller looked at her screen, then at me, then back at the screen. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Your account is frozen." That's when he laughed. My husband leaned against the counter like he owned the place, arms crossed, smile sharp, calm. He enjoyed moments like this. He always did. He tilted his head and said loudly enough for people behind us to hear, "Guess you should have asked me before trying to spend my money." A few people shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. The room went quiet in that awkward, heavy way, like everyone knew something ugly was happening, but didn't know where to look. I stared at the floor. It reflected my face back at me, pale, small, trapped. Then something unexpected happened. A man in a dark suit stepped forward from the waiting area. I hadn't noticed him before. He placed a folder on the counter and spoke calmly, clearly. "I think there's been a mistake," he said. "This account doesn't belong to him." The teller's fingers froze mid-air. The room leaned in. My husband's smile slipped, just for a second, enough for me to see it. The man opened the folder. Papers, stamps, signatures, real ones. The teller's eyes widened as she read. A whisper moved through the line behind us. Someone gasped quietly. My husband straightened. "That's not possible," he snapped. "She doesn't make decisions. I do." The teller looked up at him for the first time, with something close to pity. "Sir," she said, "this account was never under your control." Silence. His face flushed, his mouth opened, closed. People stared now, openly, judging, watching his power drain away in real time. He looked at me, confused, angry, afraid. What he didn't know, what he never bothered to learn, was that I wasn't as powerless as he thought. This wasn't luck. This wasn't an accident. And this moment, this was only the beginning. But to understand how I got here, we have to go back 3 years earlier, to the first paycheck I ever earned and the promise he made that night. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and subscribe to Social Old channel. We're creating a community of people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. The humiliation didn't happen quietly. It didn't happen at home behind closed doors. It happened in public, under bright white lights, inside a downtown bank, with strangers standing close enough to hear my breathing slow down. The air smelled like burnt coffee and overheated machines. The floor was so polished, it reflected my shoes and my face right back at me. I slid my debit card across the counter. The teller smiled politely and tapped at her keyboard. Tap, tap, pause. Her smile faded. She looked at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen again. "I'm sorry," she said, lowering her voice. "Your account is frozen." For a second, I didn't understand the words. Frozen felt like a mistake, like something that would melt if we waited long enough. Then I heard him laugh. It wasn't loud, it wasn't wild. It was calm, controlled, confident. My husband leaned against the counter beside me like he belonged there, arms crossed, relaxed, watching my face instead of the teller. I felt heat crawl up my neck. "There it is," he said, smiling. "I told you this would happen." People behind us shifted. A woman adjusted her purse. Someone cleared their throat. No one said anything. I swallowed. "There must be a mistake," I said, my voice thinner than I wanted. "That's my paycheck." He tilted his head and spoke louder, just loud enough. "Guess you should have asked me before trying to spend my money." The words hit harder because of how casually he said them. My hands tightened around the edge of the counter. I stared at the floor. The reflection staring back at me looked small, pale, trapped. The teller stopped moving completely. She began, then hesitated. Silence filled the room, the heavy kind, the kind that presses on your chest and makes you aware of every breath you take. Then something unexpected happened. A man stepped forward from the waiting area. I hadn't noticed him before. He wore a dark suit, nothing flashy, calm eyes, steady voice. "Excuse me," he said gently, placing a folder on the counter. "I think we need to take another look at this account." My husband scoffed. "This doesn't concern you." The man didn't react. He simply slid the folder closer to the teller. "It actually does," he said. "Very much." The teller opened it. Her fingers froze. Her eyes moved quickly across the page, then widened. She looked up at me, really looked at me for the first time. People leaned forward now. The room felt different, alert. My husband straightened. "What is that?" he snapped. The man in the suit spoke calmly. "Authorization records, ownership documents, income routing." My husband laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. "She doesn't handle finances. I do." The teller swallowed. "Sir," she said slowly, "this account was never under your control." The words landed like glass shattering. My husband's smile disappeared. "What?" he said sharply. The teller turned the screen toward him. "Your name isn't listed here. It never was." Silence. Someone behind us whispered, "Oh my God." My husband's face flushed red. "That's impossible," he said. "She wouldn't even know how." The man in the suit closed the folder. "You'd be surprised what people learn when they're pushed far enough." Every eye in the bank was on us, on him. He looked at me like a stranger, like a problem he hadn't planned for. "What did you do?" he whispered. I didn't answer, because what he didn't know, what he never cared to find out, was that this moment wasn't an accident. It wasn't luck, and it definitely wasn't over. This was just the first crack. But to understand how we ended up here, how he controlled every dollar I earned, how I almost believed I deserved it, we have to go back 3 years earlier. Back to the night I received my first paycheck and the promise he made that changed everything. 3 years earlier, I thought I was finally becoming someone. It was a Friday night, rain tapped softly against the apartment windows, and the smell of cheap takeout filled the kitchen. I stood there staring at my phone, refreshing my bank app again and again, waiting for one number to change. Then it did. My first paycheck. It wasn't a huge amount, but my heart raced like it was a fortune. I had earned it. Long hours, late buses, smiling through exhaustion. Proof that I could stand on my own. I walked into the living room holding my phone out like a trophy. "It came," I said, smiling. "My first paycheck." He looked up from the couch and smiled too. Warm, proud. The kind of smile that made me feel safe. "I told you," he said. "I knew you could do it." He pulled me into a hug. I remember how steady his heartbeat felt, how grounded I felt standing there. That's why I didn't question what came next. "We should be smart about this," he said casually. "Money disappears fast if you don't plan it." I nodded. That sounded reasonable. "I'm better with numbers," he added. "You don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. I'll take care of it." It felt like relief, not control. He opened his laptop and showed me spreadsheets, budgets, charts, words I didn't fully understand but trusted anyway. "Just for now," he said, smiling, "until we're stable." That night he asked for my card. "Only to set things up," he said. "Direct deposits, auto pay, savings." My stomach tightened for a second. Then I handed it to him. The next morning, he suggested we combined finances. Married people don't keep secrets, he said gently. It's us against the world. I wanted to be a good partner, a supportive wife, so I agreed. Weeks passed. My paychecks came in, and he updated me. Sometimes. Rent's paid. I moved money into savings. We can't afford that right now. At first, it sounded responsible. Then, it became rules. When I asked to buy something small, he sighed. Do you really need that? When I questioned a charge, he frowned. Why don't you trust me? Slowly, I stopped asking. I didn't see statements anymore. He said it stressed me out. I believed him. One evening, I tried to pay for groceries and my card declined. He laughed it off. Bank glitch, he said. I'll fix it later. But he didn't hand the card back. I'll hold on to it, just in case. That was the first time something felt wrong. But I ignored it because he never yelled, never hit, never said the word control. He called it protection. And I didn't realize then that the moment I handed him that card, I handed him something much bigger, my freedom. And the worst part? This was only the beginning, because soon my money wouldn't just be managed, it would be used against me. Control doesn't arrive all at once. It settles in quietly, like furniture you stop noticing, until one day you realize there's no space left to move. At first, he called it a budget. He showed me numbers on a screen and spoke slowly, like he was teaching a child. Food, rent, utilities. There's not much left after that. Then he handed me cash, an envelope, thin. This should last you the week, he said. Try to be careful. I laughed nervously. Careful with what? With spending, he replied, obviously. That was the day my money became an allowance. If I wanted gas, I asked. If I wanted clothes, I explained. If I wanted coffee, I justified it. Every purchase came with a sigh. Every question came with a lecture. You're too emotional about money. You don't understand how fast it goes. You should be grateful I handle this. I started planning my life around what he might approve. One afternoon, I stood in line at a grocery store holding a basket of basics: milk, bread, eggs, nothing extra, nothing indulgent. When it was my turn, I swiped the card. Declined. I tried again, slower. Declined. The cashier looked up at me. People behind me waited. My phone buzzed. Him. What are you doing? Me. Buying groceries. Him. I told you not to spend today. My face burned as I apologized and stepped aside, leaving the food behind. When I got home, he was calm. Too calm. You embarrassed yourself, he said. I warned you. That was how it worked. Public shame, private blame. Soon I stopped seeing friends. Eating out is a waste. Gas is expensive. They don't really care about you anyway. Phone calls became short, then rare. My world got smaller. At night, I lay awake listening to him breathe beside me, wondering how I could work full-time and still feel like a child asking for permission to exist. I tried to talk to him once. I feel like I don't have any control, I said quietly. He smiled, not kindly. Control? You don't even earn enough to talk about control. Something cracked inside me then, but fear sealed it shut again, because every time I pushed back, he reminded me of one thing. Where would you go? You can't afford anything without me. No one will take your side. I believed him, until the day I noticed something strange. One evening, while he was in the shower, his phone lit up on the table. A banking notification flashed across the screen. A deposit. My paycheck amount, but the account number wasn't mine. My hands shook as I stared at it. For the first time, I wondered if this wasn't just control, if it was something worse, something deliberate, something illegal. I put the phone back exactly where it was, and I didn't say a word, because I knew, if I was right, everything was about to change. After that night, I stopped sleeping. Not because I was tired, but because my mind wouldn't slow down. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that notification again. My paycheck, a different account. For days, I acted normal. I laughed when he joked. I nodded when he explained expenses I no longer believed. Inside, though, something had shifted. I started watching. Not him, the money. I checked timestamps, paydays, transfer patterns. I memorized numbers the way some people memorize prayers. I began keeping receipts. At first, I told myself it was just for my own clarity. Then I hid them. Inside an old notebook, inside a jacket pocket he never touched. That was my first secret. One afternoon at work, I logged into my employee payroll portal. My hand shook as I entered the password. Direct deposit details appeared on the screen. The account number didn't match the one on my debit card. I stared at it, my chest tight, my ears ringing. I followed the trail carefully. Routing number, bank name, branch location. It wasn't a joint account. It wasn't even under his name. It was a holding account. Temporary, movable, designed so I'd never notice. That night, I asked casually, "Hey, can you show me our savings sometime? I just want to understand better." He didn't look up from his phone. "Why?" he asked. "No reason," I said quickly. "Just curious." He laughed. "You don't need to stress about that. I've got it handled." Handled. That word no longer sounded safe. A few days later, while he was out, I made a call I never thought I'd make. I sat in my car in the parking lot, windows cracked, engine off. The bank representative spoke calmly, professionally. I didn't tell the whole story. I didn't need to. I just asked one question. "Can someone redirect my paycheck without my consent?" There was a pause. Then, "Not legally." My heart pounded. She explained options, safeguards, ownership rights, words like authorization and reversal. I wrote everything down on a napkin. When I hung up, my hands were sweating, but my mind was clear. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't weak. I wasn't stupid. I was being controlled. From that day on, I lived two lives: the quiet wife who followed rules, and the woman who was preparing an exit silently. I memorized account details. I learned the difference between access and ownership. I waited, because I knew one wrong move would alert him, and if he found out what I knew, he would never forgive me. But I also knew something else now. The truth was on my side, and for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what he might do. I was afraid of what I was finally ready to do. He felt it before he saw it. Control slipping doesn't make noise, but people who rely on it can sense the shift. At first, it was small things. "Why are you checking your phone so much?" "You've been quiet lately." "Is something wrong at work?" His questions sounded casual, curious, but his eyes stayed on me longer than before. I learned to breathe evenly, to answer slowly, to smile on time. "I'm just tired," I said. He didn't believe me. One evening, he brought up money out of nowhere. "We need to tighten things up," he said, scrolling through his laptop. "Expenses are getting out of hand." I knew they weren't. "I might need to move some things around," he added, "for security." My chest tightened. That night, he changed his phone password. The next morning, my debit card stopped working completely. "I canceled it," he said calmly over breakfast. "You weren't using it responsibly." I stared at my plate. My appetite disappeared. When I asked how I was supposed to get to work, he sighed. "I'll transfer gas money when you need it. Just ask." Ask. That word became a weapon. If I asked nicely, he delayed. If I asked again, he accused. If I asked too firmly, he got cold. Then came the threats, not shouted, but sharp. "You know I pay the rent. You know whose name everything is under. You wouldn't last a month on your own." One night, during an argument that started over nothing, he leaned in close and lowered his voice. No one will believe you. You don't even understand your own finances." I nodded, pretending to agree. Inside, I memorized every word. Soon, he started checking my phone, not openly, casually. "Who's this? Why are they texting you? Why is your bank app installed?" I laughed it off, deleted things, reinstalled them later. The pressure was constant, silent, heavy. I started waking up early just to have a few minutes alone, time to think without being watched. That's when I made the most dangerous decision of all. I reached out for help. Not friends, not family. Someone official. Someone who couldn't be manipulated. I scheduled an appointment under the excuse of updating records. I didn't tell him, but I marked the date in my head like a countdown. Because by then, I knew this was no longer just about money. It was about power. And he was terrified of losing it, which meant the closer I got to freedom, the more dangerous he would become. I didn't rush. That was the hardest part. Every instinct in my body wanted to act fast, to expose him, to confront him, to demand answers. But I knew speed would only warn him. So I moved slowly, carefully, like someone walking across thin ice. I started gathering documents, pay stubs, employment contracts, email confirmations, screenshots of payroll details. I saved copies in places he'd never check, an old work email, a cloud folder under a boring name. At night, while he slept, I lay still and replayed conversations in my head, practicing calm answers, neutral expressions, no emotion, because emotion was what he fed on. The appointment day came quietly. I told him I had a work meeting. He barely looked up. "Don't spend anything," he said. "I won't," I replied. My heart pounded as I walked into the bank. Not the branch near our apartment, the downtown one, busy, public, safe. I spoke to a financial officer in a small glass room. My hands trembled at first, but my voice stayed steady. "This is my income," I said, sliding the papers forward. "I need to protect it." He read everything carefully, asked precise questions, didn't interrupt, didn't judge. Then he nodded. "You have full ownership," he said. "What's happening to you isn't allowed." The words felt unreal. We set up safeguards, alerts, a new account, immediate authorization changes. "Would you like assistance resolving this in person?" he asked. I hesitated. Then I thought about every time my card declined, every time I apologized for spending my own money. "Yes," I said. We chose a date, not random, my next payday. I left the bank lighter, but not relieved, because I knew what came next. At home, he was unusually pleasant. He brought food, asked about my day, even smiled. That scared me more than his anger ever had. "You seem happier," he said. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said softly, "just tired." Inside, doubt crept in. What if I was wrong? What if I misunderstood? What if I embarrassed myself for nothing? That night, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the clock tick. I reminded myself of the facts, the documents, the truth. The truth doesn't disappear just because someone doesn't like it. The morning of payday arrived. I dressed carefully, neutral colors, no signs of rebellion. "Come with me to the bank," he said casually. "I want to check something." My stomach dropped, but I nodded. "Sure." As we walked in together, the doors sliding open, I felt fear and something else beneath it, readiness. Because he thought this visit would remind me who was in control. He had no idea it would end everything. The bank doors slid open with a soft hiss. Cool air hit my face. The familiar smell of paper, coffee, and metal filled my lungs. The lobby was busy, people waiting, phones buzzing, quiet conversations overlapping. Exactly what I needed. He walked ahead of me, confident, relaxed, like this was his territory. "Stay close," he said. "This won't take long." We reached the counter. I recognized the teller instantly. Same woman, same polite smile. "Hi," she said. "How can I help you today?" He spoke before I could. "There's an issue with her account. We need access restored." The teller typed, paused. Her eyes flicked to me. "I'll need to verify ownership," she said. He smiled. "Of course." That's when the man in the dark suit stepped forward. The same calm presence, the same steady voice. "Actually," he said, placing a folder on the counter, "I'm already assisting with this account." My husband turned sharply. "Who are you?" The man didn't raise his voice. "A financial officer, authorized by the account holder." He looked at me. My husband laughed, but it came out thin. "She doesn't authorize anything." The teller opened the folder. The room seemed to slow down. Pages turned, screens updated. The soft clicking of keys sounded loud in the silence. "I don't understand," my husband said, irritation creeping in. "Why are you showing her that?" The teller swallowed. "Sir, this account belongs solely to her." "What?" he snapped. "It always has," she continued. "Her income was redirected without proper consent. That's been corrected." The man in the suit added calmly, "Your access has been removed." The words hit him hard. His posture changed, shoulders stiff, jaw tight. "That's not possible," he said. "I handle all finances." A few people nearby stopped, pretending not to listen. The teller turned the screen toward him. His name wasn't there. Color drained from his face. "This is a mistake," he said, louder now. "She doesn't even understand money." I spoke for the first time. "I understand enough," I said. My voice surprised me, steady, clear. "To know you lied." He turned to me, eyes wide. "What did you do?" I met his stare. I protected myself. The room felt electric. A woman behind us whispered, "Good for her." The teller straightened. "Sir, you no longer have any authority here. If you have further concerns, you'll need legal counsel." Legal. That word broke him. People stared openly now. No sympathy, no confusion, just quiet judgment. He looked around like someone searching for backup and found none. His voice dropped. "You planned this." "Yes," I said. For the first time, he looked small, defeated. The man in the suit closed the folder. "Your paycheck is now secure. Would you like a private room to finalize details?" I nodded. As we walked away, I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because the power he'd used to silence me was gone, and everyone saw it happen. The doors of the bank slid closed behind me like a curtain on the last act of a play. I exhaled, a long, trembling breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The lobby's hum of conversations returned. Phones buzzed, shoes squeaked. Life went on around me, but I had changed. He wasn't beside me anymore, not in authority, not in control. Later that evening, I sat on the edge of our bed, the documents neatly stacked beside me. Every number, every receipt, every confirmation of what was mine. I allowed myself to feel it. Freedom. It wasn't loud, it wasn't explosive. It was quiet, steady, grounding. A heartbeat that wasn't racing out of fear anymore. I called my closest friend, the one I hadn't spoken to in months. "I did it," I whispered. "Did what?" she asked. I finally took control of my own life," I said. The line was silent for a moment. Then she laughed softly. "You've always had it," she said. And she was right. I had it all along. Over the next few weeks, life shifted into normalcy I hadn't felt in years. Bills paid on my terms, my paycheck deposited directly, independence restored. He tried to contact me once, cautiously. A text, a question, a smirk I no longer feared. I didn't reply. Control isn't love. Control isn't care. Control is a cage, and silence feeds that cage. The hardest lesson I learned wasn't about money, it was about recognizing power, holding your own boundaries, and refusing to let someone define your worth. I look back now, not with regret, but with clarity. Every moment of fear, every forced apology, every trembling hand, it led me here, to a place where I can say without hesitation, I am free. If you're listening, if you've ever felt trapped, financially, emotionally, or mentally, know this. The first step isn't confrontation, it's awareness, knowledge, preparation. Because the moment you take that step, you begin to reclaim yourself, and nothing anyone else says or does can take that away. I closed the folder on the bed. My reflection in the polished wood stared back at me, strong, unafraid, whole. The story wasn't just about my husband, it was about me, and finally, I was ready to live for myself.